One of my favorite approaches is from the book Essentialism, which I recommend everybody read, especially if you are a solo marketer or a very small team. But there is this concept in the book that you can say no without saying the word no. And so oftentimes it becomes maybe or not now, or that's a great idea.
Welcome back to another episode of the Leadership Cafe podcast. We have a great conversation for you today. I'm really excited. Our guest today is Melissa Zehner. She's an organic marketing strategist for B2B businesses with more than 15 years of experience in growing organic revenue for B2B startups and small businesses. And I'll tell you what, she's generated more than $300 million for the brands she's worked on and has a 96% client return rate. And in today's world of competitive organic and trying to stand out, time to sit up and listen. She is often the first marketing resource at the organization she works at, and she builds the go-to-market strategy, the lead gen strategy, all from scratch, from lead gen to implementation. So today, we're going to dive into some of those topics that will be really helpful to you small and solo teams. And when she's not nerding out on organic content, you can find her wine tasting or hiking with her adorable little dog. Maybe he'll make an appearance, Spencer, in the Pacific Northwest. Melissa, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me here. It's always a joy to talk with you, so I'm sure this is going to be fun.
Melissa and I met in a founders kind of community, and she's always a bright light and one of the smartest people in the room. So I'm glad to have you here. So
Very
before
flattering.
we dive in, since we're in the cafe, tell me about your favorite mug and what's in it or not.
It's very minimalist. It just says pause.
Yes, we need
And
that.
I like to use this mug when I am committed to taking a break, not scrolling on my phone, not reading emails, or trying to do 3 things while I'm drinking my chai latte. The pause, sometimes I just catch it, and it's a good reminder to actually take a pause.
Yes, and a breath.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
right. So mine is from Big Mountain in Whitefish, Montana, which actually has been renamed to Whitefish Ski Resort. But all the locals who've been from Montana forever have the Big Mountain Cup. So it's one of our favorite spots and where we're moving the end of this next year. So we're excited. Well, thank you. Cheers to being here. I appreciate you. So, as you know, Leadership Cafe serves primarily small and solo teams. So your insights on first one in the door and really setting it up, I think, is very helpful for our audience because a lot of them are either wearing all the hats or are trying to figure out what has marketing done, does it work, or just kind of getting started. So I'm excited about this. And Melissa has some really great insights here. So we're going to dive in. We're going to get practical right away. So, Melissa, when you're starting out from ground zero and you go into an organization or business, what are some of the first things you think someone should do? Where do they start?
Well, first, I want to acknowledge that it can be scary and overwhelming to go into a business that has no existing marketing program. So if you have ever felt that way, you are not alone. And even though I've been doing that for 15 years, there's still that moment of fear to walk in the door and realize that I am creating everything from the ground up. So I do want to acknowledge that this is hard work that we're doing here.
Yes.
I advise everybody to take a breath and look around. I know oftentimes we get in the habit of trying to set, 60, 90-day plans as we're pitching clients, and people are talking to us about their goals over the next 1, 3, 5 years. All of that is valid and relevant, but we also need to make sure that we have enough context to be able to identify priorities and make meaningful impacts sooner rather than later. So I think taking that breath, getting very familiar with the organization, understanding priorities for all of the different stakeholders that are involved is really important. One of the big approaches I advise is to start building strategy in tandem with quick wins. Any of us that have been in marketing strategy and leadership for a while, that gut instinct is like, well, of course we need strategy first. We need to build all of this out. And that's true, but I think it's very difficult when you're coming into an organization without existing marketing because oftentimes they haven't seen marketing work well for them yet.
Mhm.
And so there's skepticism, there can be distrust, there can be a lot of confusion around the role of marketing in the organization. And
Mhm.
if you spend, the first several weeks, even months building out a strategy, you're not really getting buy-in from all those people around you. And so I like to start building out strategy in the early days for those key channels or tactics that we know we need to get off the ground, and do that in tandem with identifying 2 or 3 quick wins that we can roll out in the early weeks, even 3 weeks, 4 weeks in, so that the team can see that early traction.
Sure.
And if you do that, people start to get excited, they buy into marketing a little more. The skeptics will oftentimes also take a breath, and give you a little more space to work effectively.
That's such smart advice because I've heard from a lot of people who are like, "Yeah, I take the first 2 to 3 months before I change anything." And I'm like, that is a runway that most people don't have. It's not a reality because typically when a small business or a new business is adding marketing for the first time, they're like months behind. So you don't get the luxury of months and months to get a win under your belt, and it's smart because then you get proof right away other than, "What the heck are they do in marketing?" Yes, very smart. So, can you talk a little bit more? I want to dive into that stakeholder alignment and kind of management. And why is that important? Sometimes I think the temptation is to just go in your rabbit hole and go on strategy, but talk a little bit about how that stakeholder alignment is so important when you're building out a marketing function.
So again, we're often the first head in the door, right? We're working solo or both, which means there's very limited resources. We're coming in and there's not ICP documentation. There may not be buyer personas. There may not be existing positioning or messaging. All of that legacy insight and information for marketing is probably living in people's heads.
Yeah.
And one of the first steps should always be spending time with those stakeholders, and especially those on the front lines, people in sales, customer service, patient care. If you're a nonprofit, whoever is doing fundraising and interacting
Mhm.
directly with the donors, they're going to be able to speak directly to the pain points that are most relevant, the rebuttals that they're receiving, those conversations they have where the person on the other end has that aha moment and
Mhm.
they're suddenly excited and they're interested and they're convinced. All of that is going to give you some really keen insight into how you need to build out the marketing program, how you need to craft your messaging, where you need to focus.
Mhm.
And again, we're talking about that buy in piece. Those people have probably been working with limited resources, limited support. They're excited to have you there and they want to know that you're on their team, that marketing is also going to be helping them do their own jobs more effectively.
Yep.
And so I encourage those conversations starting within the first week or two. Do the introductory coffee chats, ask them what they've been seeing, what they've been thinking about, hear them
Yes.
out, take notes on everything. I think that's really, really important. I also would caution people, though, this isn't the time to start taking requests because, to your point, people oftentimes bring in marketing months after they should have. The list of things that needs to get done is long, and every department will have a wish list for what they want.
Mhm.
And it's very easy to get stuck in a place where we're trying to accommodate everyone. We want to seem really helpful and we start becoming an order taker. And then we're essentially operating as sort of an in house agency rather than the person that is really driving strategy and prioritization for marketing. So
Right.
gain the insights, hear people out, but I think it's important to balance that with setting clear boundaries around the fact that we still need to be thoughtful about where we're prioritizing time and efforts in the early days.
Sure, that's so smart, and once you establish that order taker thing, it's hard to reel back. And so that leads me into my next question, which is really about, and it might feel a little, oh, pushy at first, but you talk about not becoming that order taker, but leading from day one. Can you color a little bit on that about why that's important for you? and what that might look like for someone in the role?
Well, for those of us that have been in-house at larger organizations or, organizations that have a full C-suite, it's unfortunate that the CMO often does not get the same level of esteem and respect and budget as a lot of the other C-suites.
Right.
That is a historic problem in marketing all the way to the top. We already know that going in. The reality is that people outside marketing also don't have a full grasp of what's possible within certain time frames.
Right.
There are people saying, I've seen 5 easy steps online that are going to help me go viral. Or, this guy says we can make an additional 6 figures this week, right? There's all of this marketing grifting going on online, and everyone is exposed to it, whether they're a marketer or not. And so we can see clearly through a lot of that, whereas other people oftentimes don't have the experience or education to do so. And
Sure.
so I think if we immediately put marketing in a position where we're constantly deferring to everybody else, to your point, it's very hard to get out of that.
Sure.
And the reality is that we're still held accountable for the marketing results. So
Right.
if we have non-marketers calling the shots, constantly placing requests, constantly inserting themselves into marketing, then we're held accountable for those metrics, but we haven't been able to control those outcomes. And that
Mhm.
puts us in a situation where we're sort of constantly the fall guy.
Yeah.
And we've all been put in that position, I think, if we have a little bit of experience. And we all learn really quickly that it's not fun. I don't want to have to constantly be justifying or explaining why marketing is here. I don't want to constantly be having to remind people about what's realistic within a certain
Uh,
timeline or a certain budget or not. And we need to set that precedent and be very thoughtful about it right from the beginning. And I
right.
also think it's possible for us to do that in a way that doesn't feel abrasive or combative.
Sure. Like maybe give a couple examples of what would I say if I'm brand new, I'm like don't even know what I'm doing yet. I don't have my strategy. What's a couple phrases that you've leaned to or something that just to get a mind's eye on what you're saying here?
Sure. So I'm not going to paraphrase it correctly, but one of my favorite approaches is from the book Essentialism, which I recommend to everybody read, especially if you are a solo marketer or a very
Mhm.
small team. But there is this concept in the book that you can say no without saying the word no. And so
Mhm.
oftentimes it becomes maybe or not now, or that's a great idea. I'll look into it. Right. And so
Mhm.
you're sort of deferring that conversation for later. Now, if you constantly kick the can down the road, you're going to get a reputation for doing that.
Yeah.
So at some point, you do need to have a more transparent conversation, but especially in those early days, that's a gentler way to say it. If I'm having an introductory chat with someone and they're giving me that laundry list of marketing initiatives they would like to see, it does become very easy in the early days to play the I'm new card and say, I really appreciate all that. I hear you out. I'm also seeing a need for a lot of these things. Give me a few weeks to meet with the other stakeholders, gather more information about the organization,
Mhm.
and come back to you with a list of what our priorities are going to look like over the first 30, 60, 90 days.
That's
And maybe you do accommodate some of those requests, right? Some of
Mhm.
them probably will make sense,
Yeah.
but you're putting yourself in a position where you're also creating agency for the marketing program.
That's so smart. I love that because and sometimes you'll find multiple stakeholders want the same thing so that you can please a bunch of people with one or two things and that helps you prioritize as well. I love it when that happens. Not always, but yeah, that's great. Very good advice. I love that. And essentialism. I'm going to look it up. I haven't read it. I
I'll send it
probably
to you.
need to. Yeah, I need to. So, part of the reason why you need to get in there, set the strategy, align with stakeholders, all of that, and to be able to prove some early wins, you gotta demonstrate some ROI. So, I wanna talk a little bit about any of your favorite tools or approaches or what should they measure when it comes to organic content? What are the measures that really matter? And, it probably will vary from organization to organization, but how do they I think it's essential to start demonstrating ROI right out the get-go, and that's what you mean, I think, by quick wins. What are some things that they should watch or look for or
I always think reverse engineering from revenue is a great approach.
Mhm.
The challenge with organic is it's not always as easily tied to revenue as something like paid marketing or account based marketing.
Mhm.
And A lot of organizations just don't even track it. So that's a phenomenal place to start. Implement tracking and attribution so that you have numbers to tie to your work. It's
Mhm.
it's not sexy, but that is the operational piece that is gonna set you up for success over the long term.
And we're
Um, but look at the organization and look at what they're doing right now to close business, whether that is getting donors, getting more subscribers, getting calls on the books with their sales team, whatever that is. Oftentimes, the place to start is more of a sales enablement place.
Mhm.
We already know what's working in the organization. Look at that and see if there's something that you can do that can improve their ability to close business more effectively or more efficiently.
Sure,
And then you're automatically in a place where inside of a few weeks, they're seeing more dollars.
sure.
And dollars are always going to talk, right? We talked about
Mhm.
that breath and that moment of pause. If they see the ROI coming in, they're going to give you a little space and a little grace to dig into the rest of the marketing work. And
Mhm.
I want to be clear, I'm not encouraging us to just be tactical. I do think we need that long term strategy. I
Yes.
do think we need to build all of that out, but we have to balance that with the short term gains
Sure.
because otherwise we're never going to get the opportunity to build out the long term piece.
Right.
So this is really creating the runway for everything else. That's a great way to do it. I know I talked about education before. I often say half of my job is just group therapy with the C suite. There's a lot of conversations about what metrics we should be looking at and what metrics are not meaningful. Again, you go online, everyone's talking about impressions. I
Mhm.
have worked with a client where they said, our goal is just to get 1 million impressions a quarter. And I said, great, how is that moving the business forward? And nobody could give me an answer because nobody can give me an answer,
Yeah.
right? So I will oftentimes hear someone out about impressions and then say, okay, let me talk to you about engagement rate.
Right.
And let's talk about why that's a potentially more meaningful metric for how we're performing online and how our messaging or our content is resonating with our audience.
Sure.
And so think about that as well. Not every metric is equally important. Again, as marketers, we know that. And a lot of times it is just a lack of sort of education for
Mhm.
why people are focusing where they're focusing.
Right.
This also sets you up for great success with the finance team. You're going to need to get budgets approved, which means you're going to need numbers. The finance team does not care how creative and cool an idea is. They care, they care about how much you're going to be spending and how much ROI it's going to get for the business.
Right.
So, I started my career as a creative. I did copywriting for many, many years before I moved up into strategy and leadership roles. I understand that, but we have to be able to balance that with the analytical, data driven part of the conversation.
Right. Right. That's really wise advice. And we do a training in the leadership cafe that's about how to create a budget that your CFO will like. And, it's some of the basics like do not turn in a Word document with your budget. It needs to be on Excel. You got to talk their language, which is numbers
Yes.
and all of the projections. So you mentioned in that response attribution. How do you show attribution on organic? What are some ideas?
Well, I'm going to start with a disclaimer. It's harder and harder in this
Mhm.
day and age.
Yeah.
So, one, the customer journey is not linear. We know
Right.
people can bounce around between different channels. We used to say it was somewhere between like 5 and 12 touch points. I read a study a few weeks ago that said now they're estimating 27 touch points
Holy cow.
for buyers. That's a lot, right? You're never going to have 100% success rate. So I think that's important to highlight as well as we're educating people.
Mhm.
Not everything that is worth doing is going to be 100% measurable and attributable. We also need to be really thoughtful about the attribution model that we're using. So if you think about those 12 to 27 touch points, whatever that
Mhm.
is, a lot of orgs will default in the early days to last click attribution. So
Mhm.
that means wherever that final click is, they're getting all of the credit for all of the
Right.
work beforehand, right? I don't believe in something like that. I
Not
definitely believe in using more of a mixed model of attribution. That's
yet.
also going to help you. Again, get with the finance team, read up on these things if you're not familiar, but being able to make educated choices about the financial and the metrics piece is absolutely going to help you, right?
Mhm.
And then make sure that you have that software in place. We know we have Google Analytics. If you are doing organic, a lot of the SEO tools now have components where they also are tracking AI mentions as well.
Mhm.
So that piece isn't totally being left in the dark. We have more analytics than we know what to do with. So, whatever platform
Right.
you're on, that is there and it's available to you. I think the important piece is making sure that we are communicating those analytics outwardly. So
Yes.
again, educating people. We
Yeah.
should be in weekly meetings, town halls, telling people how a campaign performed, letting them know the results of an A/B test we ran in
Mhm.
emails, letting them know what we're doing with new messaging and why we think it's going to perform better. All of that needs to be reported back out to people and shared. So
So good.
I advise, creating a central dashboard if you can, make it publicly available to the company.
Mhm.
You can make something that automatically refreshes so they don't have to wait for reports. But the more that information is available, the more people get excited about marketing and the more
Right.
we can prove our worth and our value.
Right. I feel like we tell our clients, you own the story of marketing. Because if you don't share that outward in that vacuum, they make up stories. And in one place where I was hired, our department was lovingly referred to as the milk and cookies department because all the people knew was that the previous person would go visit pediatric offices and cute bring homemade cookies and milk to the staff meeting at a pediatric office, but there was never any results or demonstration. And so if you don't lead that story, they're going to make one up. And I don't want to be known as a professional bow maker or all the things that happen in marketing. People have their own weird ideas of what you do. So tell them the facts. I love that.
The story piece is a good reminder though too, because a lot of marketers will get in the habit of sending out numbers and just send out numbers. And again, we forget with that curse of knowledge that they don't necessarily understand it the way we understand it. So it
Mhm.
is important to attach an explanation, even if it's a few lines. This is up, this is down, here's what it means, here's why, right?
Right.
And bake all of that back end information that you know into the explanations.
Right.
Some orgs have seasonality. We're going to see rises or dips around certain holidays, depending on what
Mhm.
we're doing. I do a lot of B2B work. There's always a slump around tax season because every small business owner is busy doing their taxes, right?
Mhm.
All of those things should be part of it. And so
Mhm.
I like that you're talking about the story piece because I think there's also a story to tell with the data, and we shouldn't just treat, numbers as numbers and creative as creative. There should be a sweet spot in the middle where all of that is giving someone a really cohesive picture of the marketing program.
Right. That's so good. So I know this wasn't on the list we talked about, but I am going off script here. So it seems like, and you mentioned it, that organic content is harder and harder to get attention to with all the things. And I know that with AI, there's a lot of bandwagoning and I'll do all your content in 5 minutes, which is tempting for a small team or bootstrapped team. And in my mind, that's just a new version of vanilla because now we've all gone from writing meh copy to distributing the average of the internet, which is AI, just meh AI copy now, and we're the same as everybody else. And I know that this is a little bit of a soapbox for you. So I want to talk a little bit about what is your advice on this whole organic content and how should we think about it and go about creating content? Is it 7 days a week? I know what you're going to say here, but I want to invite that conversation because I think it's worth having. If we're all the same, we're still all the same if we all went to AI.
I completely agree. I have stepped onto my soapbox.
Good. Let
Okay.
us have it.
All right, a few thoughts here. So, when we're talking about content, the initial excitement was, "Oh, great, I don't need a copywriter. AI can do that." Now, if AI is able to replace your copywriter, you have the lowest common denominator of copywriter. Your
Mhm.
copywriter is not good. You should have solved that problem before AI was there.
Yeah.
Whether that's getting someone more talented or upskilling the person that you have, right?
Yes.
The other option is like AI can create graphics and videos, which we largely can tell are very AI
Yeah.
generated and oftentimes do not align with the brand visuals, the brand identity whatsoever.
Right.
I encourage everyone to start from a place of a very specific gut check,
Yeah.
which is the goal is not efficiency. AI does everything faster than a human. It does, and I will give that to AI
Mhm.
as long as you're prompting it fairly functionally. AI does not replace human creativity, human connection, ingenuity,
Mhm.
empathy, the ability to, make someone feel seen and heard and validated in their daily experience and their feelings. You
Mhm.
know, it's just a copy of a copy of a copy. And so if
Mhm.
you really want to get ROI with your brand, you need to shift from efficiency to effectiveness. And every marketing material that you put out, you should be asking yourself if that's effective. Before you hit the publish button, you should be able to answer how it supports your marketing strategy, how it supports the business in a meaningful way,
Mhm.
whether that is strengthening or diluting your brand identity,
Yeah.
whether you have a clear understanding of how that may bring ROI or engagement or loyalty to your brand. And
Right.
if you can't answer those questions, which you probably can't if you're just throwing AI slop out there 7 days a week,
Mhm.
then why are you hitting the button? Because what you're really doing is checking an arbitrary box and
Yes.
you're checking it for efficiency versus effectiveness.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
that was a lot. I have more. Do you want me to keep going or do you want
Yes.
do you want to interject?
Let
Okay.
us have it. This is all about practical advice, and I think this is
Yes.
such an important message, and it's a
I
shame that it has to be so countercultural right now, but I feel like you're the pendulum swing of reason.
But a lot of this, I'm not saying anything groundbreaking, right? What I'm doing is again that pause, forcing
Mhm.
us to go back to a place of common sense and be like, why are we doing this in the first place?
Mhm.
What is the point of marketing? Because it is not
Right.
to just spin up a bunch of crap really quickly. That is not
Right.
the point of marketing. That's not why you're spending thousands of dollars on marketing.
Right.
And when you go to that place, I mean, I've yet to have any C-suite counter me with that argument when I remind them
Mhm.
that we're doing things to be effective and to have
Right.
meaningful impact.
Right.
Another big point I think is very important to highlight is that AI, I think, can be useful as we're crafting strategies. An example I will give is, aggregating lots of data,
Yes.
combining different data sets, pulling
Mhm.
themes out of there, all of
Mhm.
that stuff that is just painstaking and tedious and takes a lot of time. We should not be going to AI and saying, like, what is my marketing strategy or what should my positioning be? Because
Right.
again, it does not have the context of someone who has been marketing, who has been in the industry for a long time, who has
Right.
been on the front lines talking with the people that we are trying to sell to
Mhm.
every single day.
Right.
It doesn't understand our product the same way. I could go on and on here, right? And so I always advise people if you're going to use AI, you need to use it the way that you would use an intern or an assistant.
Yeah.
You task it with the things that are tedious and painstaking for you that, yes, you need. They're a component of your work and they're going to support that bigger, broader thinking. And so, what
Right.
it does is it frees you up to then do the strategic thinking. But there
Yeah.
is absolutely no scenario where AI should be setting your strategy for you. And I'm going to
Right.
share an example. A few months ago, I read a story from someone I know very closely, so I don't think this was made up, and they knew a marketer who had crafted a whole strategy, gone in and presented this to the marketing leadership team. And at the end, there was a Q&A section and they were asking her line of thinking for various components of the strategy. And she didn't have answers for why she had chosen one or the other, or why she had suggested a certain direction.
Mhm.
And in the course of the conversation, it came out that AI had crafted most of the strategy.
Mhm.
That is the nightmare scenario.
Yes.
I can't imagine that going well. I can't imagine anyone hanging on to their job after. And that's just going to further reinforce this very misinformed idea that we don't need marketers or strategists because AI can do all the work for us.
Right. Right. 100%. Amen, girl. Louder for the people in the back. I love that. And I think it's so wise though, because we use AI for when we're trying to do messaging and positioning, competitive assessment stuff. So cool. Okay. Pull the stuff for these competitors. How are they positioning? What are their main products? What are the reviews online about them? And it pulls a great thing that used to literally take forever. Those kinds of uses are great to inform your strategy, not to do it for you. So smart. I love that. Thank you very much. So we are, as much as it seems like we just started, we're running up on time here, but where can folks find you if they want to follow your content and learn more, which I definitely recommend because always full of insight and very fresh takes on marketing.
Fresh is a generous adjective, Sally. Thank you. I post 5 days a week on LinkedIn, so
Mhm.
you are welcome to follow me there. I'm also very active in the comments. I like to nerd out on marketing. I like to have conversations about whatever is top of mind for me, so please feel free to show up and engage. I promise I will reply to you. If you
Mhm.
want more information about my business, you can visit organicgtm.com.
Nice. And she's got some tools and other things that you can buy. We'll link all that in the show notes for sure. Melissa, thank you very much for being with us. I appreciate it. And listener, thanks for being here with us. If you enjoyed today's Leadership Cafe podcast, please stop by and give us a review. Every review helps us spread the news. And if you like what you heard, click the little follow and you'll be up to date on all of our practical and helpful episodes on marketing and leadership. The Leadership Cafe is a free online community, and you are welcome to join us. We share ideas, education, resources. There's nothing behind a gate there. We are sharing the things that we use in our agency and the tools and resources that we find and have used over our careers of marketing. So you're welcome to join us. It's not on social media. It's on a free platform called Circle, and that's because we didn't want to deal with the spam, the drama, all the bots, and everything else that goes on social media. So this is a safe place to come ask questions, be in community, get help, and you're welcome to join us. Find out all the information at theleadershipcafe.com.